Thanks for sticking around. Welcome back to Face to Face. We're talking about the construction issues at CityCenter. Joining me now, Ron Lynn. He's the director of Clark County's Development Services. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much, John.
Let's talk a little bit about it. There's a lot of issues here, as I talked before. How did you find out about this?
Well, through the entire special inspection process, the engineer of record, pursuant to Chapter 1709 of the International Building Code, as adopted by Clark County, had to go out there what's called structural observation. He is required to go out there and look at it. Actually, this dates back to 1982.
Don't go through the history. You're going to waste people's... People want to know. I want to know, since we talked with Alexandra about this process, when does Ron Lynn have someone knock on his door and say, you're not going to believe what they found? And what's your reaction? How does that happen?
Well, again, the process worked. The structural observation observed a violation. Now, a portion of the process did not work. The special inspectors did not do their job. But there's a multi-tiered process. Ultimately, the responsibility for the construction is that of the licensed contractor by state law. That contractor and his monitoring process over his subs are who is responsible to do it right. Then the next level is the special inspector who is there nearly continuously during this process. Finally, structural observation. Because who knows the building better than the structural engineer?
But ultimately, the responsibilities, people watching here are going to say, people responsible for keeping people safe, whether it's in a building on the Strip or a building downtown or a building on West Sahara, is the guy sitting across from John Ralston right now, Ron Lynn. You are responsible. Government's responsible, right? That
is correct. But it doesn't relieve individual responsibility
I'm
along
not suggesting it doesn't. That's why there's these systemic questions that I think come up. Why does this exist in the first place? But first I want to show what you had to say, because you were asked the question I would have asked you by Channel 8, which is this building safe? Here's what you had to say.
A building is truly tested in the construction process for the gravity loading. Now, on lateral loading, it does not comply with the codes and standards and is not prepared for occupancy at this time. But repairs are being undertaken right now. It is not an at-risk structure by any means.
I'm going to ask you to do what Channel 8 didn't ask you to. I'm going to ask you to speak English. At-risk structure at any time, lateral loading. Tell us the bottom line here, sir.
The bottom line right now, the structure is safe as it sits, but it is not prepared for occupancy, and here is why. We have a design in the original building up to 49 stories. Okay, they were implementing repairs for the concept of a building of 49 stories. The building's heavier at 49 stories, has a larger profile, if you will, for resistance to earthquake, wind, and everything else. By reducing this height down to 25, it no longer has these stresses. Now there is ongoing work being done as far as cleaning up some of these repairs and issues, but the building as it stands now is structurally safe.
You've been doing this for a while. You heard what Alexandra found out from other experts, that essentially this was a very different kinds of errors, the variety of errors, etc. Talk about the uniqueness of the problems there compared to other things you've seen.
Well, we see problems on every construction site, site. But what was interesting on this one was the fact that it was not repetitive in the same way. Let me use an example. If you left out a piece of rebar on every single beam, okay, that's understandable. Someone missed it and they repeated that problem. Or if they used the wrong size, maybe the wrong size is delivered. In this case, each of these link beams, not each one, but a majority of them, were configured differently in each case. A very unusual process.
What do you conclude from something like that?
That certainly they were not being watched.
And not being watched in the way at a normal construction site, or just at one of this size?
Either way. Yeah, I say they were not being watched. The special inspectors are there full-time watching the placement of the rebar and also for the concrete pour. Certainly, okay, let's say it was placed right or incorrectly. During the concrete pours, when you're covering up, they are there full-time.
They should have detected this.
Not just one, multiple people.
Should have. The question, though, of course, and I'm going to talk about this when we come back, Mr. Lynn, does this system, the way it's set up, work? I want to get your take on that. When we come back with the county van who supervises all this stuff, Ron Lynn, he's the head of development services for the county. Back in a moment.